Welcome back to the Saturday Five. I thank you very much for your company. Now it's over to our guest presenter this evening, the wonderful Dominique Samuels. Dominique's going to tell us why the protests against Posie Parker in New Zealand are an example of sheer misogyny. Let's start the clock.
Well, the modern trans movement is no longer about equal rights and dignity. It's about a baying mob demanding that you deny biological sex or else. We saw as much during the treatment of women's rights campaigner Posie Parker in the New Zealand leg of our international tour titled Let Women Speak. And what did we find? Bays of mostly feral men foaming at the mouth, desperate to stop a woman from speaking. Their arsenal? Tomato soup, expletives and trans flags. Now, we know that these so-called protesters expose themselves to be violent thugs, but I think something really quite pernicious runs at the heart of this, and it's called misogyny. Let's just look at the figures. Over 70% of those that identify as trans are biological men with, you guessed it, penises. It's no wonder then that it's mostly women and women's spaces that are ritually sacrificed at the altar of trans rights. Something stinks here, and it's called misogyny.
I mean, Dominique, you couldn't have ended that better. But Dominique, I want to actually abuse my position of the chair and ask you a question. Why do you think the Foreign Office haven't actually got involved with this? Because I don't know about any of you, but it strikes me as absolutely rotten that a British national who, 2 weeks after they've released a strategy on women and girls claiming to back women's free speech, right? Why are the Foreign Office not actually saying to New Zealand, I'm sorry, but this is an outrage?
That's an extremely good point, actually, because first activists tried to prevent her from actually going there, and when she gets there, she's literally in fear for her life. And I think there's certain departments in government that are more leftward, I think, because of civil servants that exist there. So perhaps they don't want to rock the boat, but I think absolutely that the government should step in and say something here. I mean, what do you think, Albie?
I mean, I'm not really sure it's the Foreign Office's job or James Cleverly's job to be getting involved in this sort of thing in New Zealand. It's for them to decide who's allowed in their country, and they let Posie Parker in. But to come back to your point, my issue with Posie Parker isn't so much the cause which she is championing, it's the way that she goes about it. She has been accused of harassing people, and I think that's totally wrong. I also think it's totally wrong for protesters to be harassing her when she's going about her business in New Zealand. But she knows she's talking about a very controversial topic.
What is controversial?
And I just wish she would do it in a bit more of a respectful way rather than seeking to be so abrasive.
I'm sorry, but she is just sick and tired of having to step on eggshells on this issue. I think she is a brilliant champion for women's rights. And she, sometimes she has to be blunt. Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are, rather than pretend that things that aren't true are true, just to keep people happy, to be politically correct. If it weren't for her, then women like me wouldn't feel comfortable speaking up on these types of issues. People like Dominique wouldn't. If it weren't for J.K. Rowling, if it weren't for Posie Parker or Kelly J. Keane, which is her real name, I believe, we would feel like we couldn't.
But, Emily, you see, my issue with what you have just said is that prominent feminists within the gender-critical movement, such as Julie Bindel, have actually sought to distance themselves from Posie Parker precisely because of the way that she conducts herself, which is my problem with how she behaves.
I think that's obviously Julie's prerogative, but I think that it's Posie Parker who is most known. It's Posie Parker that is all around the world trying to let women speak. And the reason why we must be blunt here is because we are losing ground, quite frankly. Everywhere you turn, men are being shoehorned into women's spaces. And I think we need to be clear here. Men that identify as women are trans, but that doesn't make them a biological woman. Therefore, we shouldn't have to share changing rooms. We shouldn't have to participate in the same sports. We shouldn't be in the same rape shelters. It's inappropriate.
I mean, the videos I saw of this person on her tour, and it seems to be a sort of bigger world tour than Taylor Swift can manage. The ego of this person to think that she could just go around the world telling them what they should think.
How dare she protest? The ego.
In other people's countries. I think they can make their own decisions on these things, frankly. But look, most of the people I saw protesting against against her were women.
Oh,
there was
really?
a senator from Tasmania who protested against her and was arrested and thrown away.
I'm sorry,
and the
Benjamin.
truth is that I'm sorry, you said that you take issue with the way she does it rather than what she does. I think hate is at the centre.
I don't know how you can look at the scenes.
transphobia.
How can you look at the scenes in New Zealand and think that she is the one in the wrong?
Exactly.
Did you see the clips? She was being threatened. She was being
Tomato
shoved.
soup.
She had soup, as Dominique said,
let me tell
thrown
you.
on her. It really was
Emily,
some kind of witch trial.
And let me just
Maybe she gets
describe.
an insight into what it's like to be a transgender
Let me just.
person every
Well, that's
single
not
day.
true.
The amount of
Because-
abuse they get is a fraction of what
No,
these
no,
critical
it's really
feminists
not, because
get.
actually, let's look at the facts here. There are no rights that trans people don't have in this country and in other major developed countries.
So then why
that
do they
people
face...
that don't identify
Why do they
as
have
trans
surging numbers of hate crimes? That's abuse in the streets, abuse in their offices. Why are there so many people, and we know this, who are transgender, who have realised that and recognised that in themselves for their whole lives, but are too terrified to tell anyone in the world?
and what about women,
Why is
though?
that, if not for bigotry?
But what about women, though? Number
answer
one...
the question.
No, what about women,
because
though?
I don't accept that they are mutually exclusive. I don't accept that
They
your
are.
right to lead your life is harmed by someone out there being transgender.
So you don't think that my life as a woman, say if I wanted to participate in professional sport, you don't think my life as a woman is impacted by a biological man wanting to play basketball, for example, with me and other women? You don't think there's an advantage
I think
there?
if a 25-year-old person who has been physically male and then starts the process of transitioning wants to go straight into women's sports, I think there's obviously an unfairness in that.
Right.
But what I don't accept is this argument that somehow people who've fully transitioned, who've had the medical and the physical journey, that they shouldn't be able to live their lives and they're somehow rapists.
But that's not the argument,
If I may
though.
just finish quickly. You know, Wayne Couzens didn't need to dress up as a woman, he dressed up as a police officer. Ian Huntley didn't need to dress up as a woman, he dressed up as a school caretaker. Men who want to attack women dress up as establishment
I'm just going to have to
figures,
insert
not
some.
trans
I'm just
women.
going to have to insert some facts here, and there's no hate here. But when you actually look at the statistics, trans people, trans men, well, men that identify as women, actually have similar offending rates as that of biological men, and record numbers of those actually have convictions for sexual assault in prison. You are more likely to.
But that's not
assault.
to say all trans women are...
No, of
No,
course
that's not the point.
Harming
though.
women.
That's not the
Feminists
point. though.
constantly talk about male violence, rightly, because that is a cause that feminists will always want to speak about and campaign for. But then why, as soon as a man says that they are a woman, do we suddenly always believe? You know, that this is a topic that women feel very, very strongly about. They've been cowed for a long time. People like Posie Parker have allowed women, normal women, to have a voice, and I think that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah.
And Dominique, just very quickly, briefly, because we're coming to the end, do you actually think Kelly J. Keane, warning for years as she has about what the dangers of self-ID could be, when you've got someone like Isla Bryson, so-called, in a Scottish prison, who actually used surgeon self-ID to say, you know, I'm a woman now, get put with women?
Exactly. Like, these are facts. Now, nobody's saying that all trans people or all trans women are criminals, but there is a tendency of people to use dressing up as a woman to fulfil their own sexual fetishes and actually use the new environment that we have now to take advantage of that. And I don't think it's transphobic to point that out and raise a concern.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it? We'll need a breather after that.